So, Charlie, do you accept the View's apology?
I mean, regardless of whether or not I accept it, the question is, do our students accept it? That's really what's at heart here. They went after our 5,000 students at our event there of high school and college kids. And look, I get attacked all the time. People say false things. I'm a public figure. But when you go after 16 and 17-year-olds that travel from across the country that then have to live for the rest of their life with a shadow over them because someone at ABC says that they might be linked to neo-Nazis. But look, what did it take for us to get to the point of an apology? We had to threaten a lawsuit, Jesse. And by the way, we're still entertaining it. We're talking to some of the best lawyers out there that are experts in this. And as you know, these things can be very complicated. There's a lot of facts and circumstances around it. But we're not going to let this go because you should not be able to smear 5,000 high school and college kids and then just be able to walk away with it. And the reason they felt they needed to do that, Jesse, is because if they told their audience the truth, that when gas is the most expensive it's been, flights are super expensive, that 5,000 kids decided to spend a weekend in summer traveling across the country to go hear from conservative speakers, maybe the audience of The View would think twice about all of their ideas. That's why they felt so compelled to try to smear our wonderful summit this last week.
Imagine this: a popular daytime talk show, a confident TV host, and a group of students suddenly caught in the middle of a big controversy. It all began when the show, The View, decided to criticize Turning Point USA, a conservative student group, but they didn't stop at the organization itself. Instead, they went further and targeted over 5,000 young people who attended one of the group's events, including teenagers, high schoolers, and college students, many of whom traveled from across the country, paid for everything themselves, and came just to listen to speakers talk about politics and values.
Charlie Kirk took issue with this depiction of his organization. Kirk maintains that Turning Point USA is not affiliated with anti-Semitism or white supremacists. In a strongly worded tweet, the 28-year-old stated, "Talking to lawyers, many think we have a strong case. You cannot smear minors as and get away with it. It impacts them for the rest of their life. Hashtag sue the View." That's when TPUSA went all in. The organization changed its profile pic on Twitter to hashtag sue the View, posted a number of tweets condemning The View and demanding an apology.
Then came the moment that set everything off. Live on air, The View suggested that these students might somehow be connected to neo-Nazi groups, and that wasn't just a careless mistake, it was like dropping a media bomb. Charlie Kirk, the face of Turning Point USA, didn't take it lightly, not because he was personally attacked, but because thousands of young people, most under 21, were being unfairly smeared on national television. He made it clear, saying, "These kids now have to carry a public stain tied to a lie, all because someone at ABC threw out a reckless comment." He wasn't asking for sympathy for himself. He wanted accountability for the students who trusted his organization and now had their names dragged through the mud. By the way, before we continue, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us grow and bring you more unbelievable stories like this. Now back to it, and just when things couldn't get any more intense, Sunny Hostin added fuel to the fire. While sitting at the View table, she didn't just talk politics. She took aim at uneducated white women, claiming that a big part of Donald Trump's support came from women without college degrees. And then she made it worse with a smug remark, clearly suggesting that not having a formal education means lacking intelligence. But here's where it hit home for many viewers. People weren't just disagreeing with her, they felt personally attacked. Because let's be honest, not going to college doesn't mean someone is stupid.
Nothing else to talk about. Maybe you should get the lawyer that worked on that Covington Catholic school case. What was that, a $200 million settlement? I think, Charlie, you could use the money, and your students definitely could too.
And when you're sitting in $1 million studio, sipping coffee on a major network while casually calling large groups of everyday people uneducated, it doesn't seem bold. It comes across as arrogant, and that moment gave Charlie Kirk exactly what he needed. He jumped on it and called it a clear example of what he sees as elitist hypocrisy. A woman with a law degree on national TV mocking hard-working Americans who didn't choose the same path, many of whom raise families, pay taxes, hold jobs, and vote. And if you were one of those people watching from home, it didn't feel like a political discussion. It felt like someone saying your voice doesn't count just because you didn't spend thousands of dollars on a college degree, and that single moment changed the entire tone of the controversy. And trust me, Things only got worse from there. But here's the twist. Charlie Kirk never even went on The View. There was no surprise guest appearance, no loud back and forth at a table, no face-to-face drama. Instead, he fired back from a totally different place, dropping a high-quality response video that hit hard like a digital punch. And this wasn't just some shaky phone rant in a car. It was sharp, well-written, full of edits, dramatic zooms, and intense background music that made sure his message landed with impact.
Now we begin with a shocking apology just a short time ago from the ladies of The View to Turning Point USA. A war of words broke out after the conservative group was rallying the next generation of voters at its youth summit in Tampa, Florida this weekend. And the liberal panel just couldn't help themselves. The group sent a scathing cease and desist letter after hosts on The View suggested that Turning Point had embraced neo-Nazis who showed up outside the event.
It looked less like a response and more like a mix between a campaign ad and a digital demolition derby. Every frame was crafted to embarrass Sunny Hostin, every line was sharp like a dagger, and Charlie Kirk didn't just disagree with her views. He torched them and threw the remains into the internet for everyone to devour. The timing was spot on. Just hours after The View aired, Kirk's video was already going viral. Twitter was on fire, YouTube reactions were dropping non-stop, and TikTok. Creators were chopping it into quick knockout edits, all while Sunny was still sitting under the studio lights. Kirk had completely taken over the narrative from a totally different location, and it was a masterclass in modern media warfare. He didn't win with facts or fairness, but with flashy production, lightning-fast reactions, and total control of the online world. The scariest part for The View? He made it look like she lost the debate, and he wasn't even in the room.
Turning Point conference, were in the front of out there in front of the conference with anti-Semitic slurs, and the I think it's important that every single person that attended that Turning Point, every Republican speak up against these against the Nazi flag.
This whole situation wasn't really about who was right, it was about who looked like they were in control, and once Kirk's video hit the internet, Sunny Hostin suddenly didn't seem like the confident legal analyst everyone's used to seeing. Her posture changed, her tone got shaky, and her smile started to feel forced. People noticed, and not in a good way. The internet doesn't care about context or explanations, it cares about how someone looks while taking a hit, and Sunny looked rattled, not screaming or throwing things like on Real Housewives, but in that quiet, uncomfortable way where someone's clearly trying to hold it together while their face gives everything away. Her eyes kept darting to the teleprompter like it was a lifeline, her voice wavered, and her whole presence screamed, "How did this go so wrong?" Online, no one was even talking about the actual topic anymore. They were dissecting her expressions, replaying clips of her blinking too fast, fidgeting, and glancing around, which quickly went viral. At that point, it wasn't about politics, it was all about optics, and the optics made it clear, she got steamrolled.
Monday, we talked about the fact that there were openly demonstrators outside the Florida Student Action Summit of the Turning Point USA group. We want to make clear that these demonstrators were gathered outside the event and that they were not invited or endorsed by Turning Point USA. A Turning Point USA spokesman said the group, quote, 100% condemns those ideologies, and said Turning Point USA security tried to remove the neo-Nazis from the area but could not because they were on public property. Also, Turning Point USA wanted us to clarify that this was a Turning Point USA summit and not a Republican Party event. So we apologize for anything we said that may have been unclear on these points.
Charlie Kirk didn't just tear apart her argument, he shattered the polished media image Sunny Hostin had built over years, and when a high-profile, camera-ready host starts to visibly unravel on air, that's exactly the kind of content the internet devours instantly. But things got even uglier after The View made those on-air comments linking Turning Point USA student attendees to neo-Nazis. The organization didn't just get upset, they went straight to the legal route by sending a cease and desist letter, not as a friendly warning, but as a serious legal threat with one clear message: you can't smear 5,000 young people and act like it never happened. What made it even worse was how hard these students had worked just to attend the event. Flights were expensive, gas prices were sky high, and many of them made major sacrifices just to be part of something they believed in.
welcome back. You know, in Monday's conversation about Turning Point USA, I put the young people at the conference in the same category as the protesters outside. And I don't like it when people make assumptions about me. And it's not any better when I make assumptions about other people, which I did. So, my bad. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So, the state, the U.S.
Over the weekend, Turning Point USA hosted a riveting event in Tampa, Florida called the Student Action Summit. Outside of the event were individuals waving flags and engaged in other activities. Well, on Monday's show, members of The View made a few comments about it.
The conservative group Turning Point USA has condemned the group of neo and said they have nothing to do with the organization.
Yeah, but where was DeSantis is what I want to know.
But you let them in.
President, open your
You
mouth.
let them in and you knew what they were.
Right.
So you are complicit.
But even with all the challenges, they came. Teenagers and college students from all across the country showed up at this conservative summit not to spread hate or cause chaos, but to listen to speakers, be part of a movement, and learn something meaningful. They weren't waving hate symbols or starting riots. Yet instead of being recognized for their dedication, they were unfairly grouped with a fringe group that wasn't even part of the event. Charlie Kirk made it absolutely clear that Turning Point USA didn't invite those extremists. In fact, they tried to get them removed but couldn't because the protesters were standing on public property. Still, that didn't stop The View's hosts from painting everyone with the same broad brush, and that false image stuck. Kirk wasn't about to let that go unchallenged. He called it exactly what it was, a deliberate smear.
Her disgusting, gross elitism and her complete out-of-touch nature with respect to the rest of the world. Sunny Hostin goes on The View and decides now would be a great time to dump all over the so-called uneducated.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men, actually, voting more for him. And you have, and black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Right.
Just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach.
And if the media thought they could throw out baseless accusations and just move on, they were about to learn how wrong they were. Because here's the part that hit like a wrecking ball. Sunny Hostin wasn't ambushed. There was no surprise guest, no heated exchange, no live chaos. Just her, the camera, and the echo of Charlie Kirk's viral video roaring across the internet. He didn't have to shout or even be in the room, because his perfectly edited words landed harder than any face-to-face. While The View stuck to its usual formula, a panel discussion, a few jabs, and then on to the next topic, Kirk went scorched earth, tearing through her ideology like it owed him rent, and he didn't hold back. He mocked her elitism, dismantled her beliefs, and portrayed her as completely out of touch with everyday Americans.
Your achievements. How do you like the so-called uneducated now, Sunny?
Yeah, and again, by the way, rarely do you get the answer to a question in the question. And her whole question is exactly why there was a rebellion against them.
Yes.
Listen, just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. I always differentiate between knowledge and wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach. I mean, or about North African lesbian poetry. Okay, that's fine, I get it.
The video didn't just challenge Sunny Hostin's opinion, it turned her into a symbol of everything the conservative audience loves to hate: media privilege, academic snobbery, and a dismissive attitude toward working-class people, and the reaction was immediate. The clip didn't just trend, it dominated social media, with comments flooding in and reaction channels lighting up like a Christmas tree as viewers tuned in not just to watch Sunny, but to watch her squirm, and they loved every second of. The worst part was, she couldn't really fight back, because once the internet turns you into a symbol or a meme, you stop being a person and become a target, and that's exactly what happened to her. Then came the headlines, loud and mocking, plastered everywhere with phrases like, Charlie Kirk ends daytime delusion, and, Sunny Hostin hit with a reality brick, flooding timelines and sparking subreddit feeding frenzies. TikTok edits zoomed in on every tiny expression, her blinking, fidgeting, shifting in her chair, and that tight, uneasy smile, all looped, remixed, memed, and shared by the second. And while the internet exploded, something strange was happening on The View. The studio energy dropped, conversations stalled, and even the audience didn't know when to clap or when to cringe.
Point I'll say is this, is Sunny, you guys thought that abortion was going to be this like quasi-zealot religious issue? I'm pro-life. If people in the audience aren't, that's fine. What I'm saying though, what gives me promise, and I think we can all agree on this, is that there are other issues that should animate and drive our politics other than this very divisive one. And I was really encouraged by that, Megan. Very encouraged, because the media was forcing this as an up or down vote on a referendum on a highly complicated, very emotional, very personal issue. And it turned out the American people were like, yeah, actually, these other 6 things matter more.
You could almost feel the awkward tension slipping right through the screen. Sunny Hostin, the usually calm and confident legal commentator, suddenly looked like she was sinking. She wasn't yelling or storming off, but her confidence cracked with every word, and her calm, commanding presence was replaced by clear discomfort that she couldn't hide. Meanwhile, Charlie Kirk wasn't even near the studio. He was probably already celebrating from his digital throne, watching as the internet turned his response into a cultural bombshell. He didn't need to be there in person because the internet had already crowned his video a brutal, meme-fueled takedown, and Sunny was right in the center of it. By then, it wasn't about the argument anymore. Kirk shifted focus and wasn't just attacking Sunny's comment. He went after everything she represented: the suit, the degrees, the media training, the polished image of authority. He tore that image down like it was made of matchsticks, and the way he did it was ruthless, dropping another video even more dramatic, full of flashy graphics, slow zooms on Sunny's face, and intense music, like a movie trailer for a political takedown. Under all the edits, the message was clear: people like Sunny, polished liberal voices on daytime TV, don't speak for regular Americans and never did. The impact was instant. Viewers didn't just share the video, they turned it into reaction content. YouTubers added commentary, TikTokers added sad violin music, Gen Z turned it into dance memes. It wasn't just a viral clip anymore, it became an entire ecosystem. Every blink, every fidget from Sunny's appearance was looped, memed, and monetized in dozens of ways. She never screamed or lost her temper. Her breakdown was quiet, real, and raw, the kind you can't fake, and on today's internet, that's like blood in the water. Viewers don't need a meltdown with chairs flying, they just need that one look that says, I wasn't ready for this, and that's exactly what she gave them. Then came the apology, not a big press conference or dramatic tears, but a careful, quiet statement slipped into The View's next episode. Sunny said she didn't like being judged by assumptions and admitted she had done the same to the Turning Point USA students. A soft, my bad. But by then, it was too late. Outside the studio, the online world exploded. Conservative blogs called it a cultural victory. Kirk's fans celebrated like they won the Super Bowl. Reaction videos looped her discomfort endlessly, and creators even added flames behind her, calling it the crash of credibility. It was everywhere. TikTok users turned her facial expressions into meme templates. One viral clip had her blinking over a dubstep remix. This was no longer just commentary, it was pure entertainment, and Sunny Hostin, whether she liked it or not, was the star of a digital train wreck. Meanwhile, Charlie Kirk was glowing, not just because he landed his argument, but because his platform had completely hijacked the story. Traditional media scrambled to catch up, issuing corrections and clarifications, but none of that mattered. The internet had already moved on, and Sunny had become the face of what happens when you underestimate just how brutal, fast, and relentless meme culture really is. She apologized with dignity, but dignity doesn't go viral, humiliation does. What made this hit even harder? Charlie Kirk didn't win because he had the best facts or the smartest argument. He won because he understood the new rules. Sunny Hostin walked into this fight thinking it was about reason, law degrees, and polished delivery. But in 2025, media battles are about who creates the most viral, emotional moment, not who's right. Kirk treated her like a Twitter handle, not a person. stripping away all nuance, turning her into a symbol, and launching her into the algorithm with the power of a flamethrower and a smug grin, and it worked. His video spread like wildfire, and his fans turned it into GIFs, memes, and even merchandise at one point. People were even selling t-shirts with Sunny's reaction face printed right across the front, while she was still trying to run a daytime talk show, unaware that a storm had already hit. She came prepared with legal analysis and moral clarity, but Kirk brought a mean war, and she showed up with a notepad. In today's media circus, the crowd doesn't want calm discussions, they want fireworks, and she learned that lesson the hard way, live on national TV, while the internet clipped her blinking into thousands of viral edits. It wasn't a fair fight, it wasn't even the same game anymore. This wasn't about ideas, it was about survival in a digital coliseum where only one thing matters: who gets the crowd to cheer. They were cheering for blood. While Sunny Hostin tried to regain control of her image, the internet ran wild. Commentators analyzed every pause, every awkward glance. Entire YouTube channels broke down her segment frame by frame, treating it like a political autopsy. Not one word she said mattered anymore. What mattered was how shaken she looked, and that's the cruel truth of today's media world. Image is everything. If you flinch on camera, you don't just lose the argument, you become the argument. And Sunny flinched. Charlie Kirk didn't need to be on set or step onto a debate stage. He pulled off the digital version of a drone strike, remote, precise, and devastating. He hit her where it hurt the most: her reputation. Her carefully built brand of intelligence, composure, and credibility cracked on camera, and the internet made sure it never stopped playing on loop. For years, Sunny represented calm, articulate liberal media confidence, sure of her values. But none of that matters when your facial expressions get turned into TikToks with clown music. You can be completely right and still lose because the crowd isn't scoring facts, they're scoring reactions. And now, her breakdown wasn't just a one-time moment, it was a viral template, a recycled reaction clip, a meme factory. Her public image, built over years, was stuck in a 5-second loop of blinking eyes and tight smiles. The damage was done, and the internet never forgets. Just when you thought it had peaked, it kept going. Because once a moment like this catches fire online, it doesn't just burn, it spreads. Sunny Hostin's stumble wasn't just a headline or trending clip, it became a content goldmine. TikTokers, Instagram meme pages, reaction YouTubers, they all jumped in like vultures at an all-you-can-eat outrage buffet. One creator added circus music to her reaction, another made a meme called The Blinking Breakdown. Influencers who probably think Karl Marx is a TikTok dance started debating the ethics of daytime TV. It became such a big joke that even people who never saw the original segment felt like they had. Meanwhile, Kirk cruised on digital autopilot. He didn't have to respond again, he had already won. His fan base did all the work, reposting, remixing, stitching, while the View scrambled to clean up the mess with carefully worded follow-ups and legal clarifications. They stressed that Turning Point USA never invited or endorsed the neo-Nazis protesting outside their event, and that security tried to remove them but couldn't because it was public property. But none of that mattered, the internet doesn't do retractions, and it doesn't care about context. The internet doesn't care about facts or fairness, it cares about impact, and Sunny's on-air unraveling was already saved, shared, and stuck in the meme archives forever. Now we get to the part no one on The View was ready for, the collapse of a whole media strategy. For years, shows like this worked on a simple formula: speak calmly, look smart, sprinkle in legal terms, and the audience would nod along. But that formula is broken. Sunny brought law school logic to a meme war, and that's why she got crushed. The internet doesn't reward careful reasoning, it rewards chaos. When Charlie Kirk dropped his response, it wasn't made for fact-checkers, it was built to go viral. No policy papers, just sound bites, visuals, and punchy delivery to make people stop scrolling. The View showed up thinking it was still 2015, that you could sip lattes, toss around smart opinions, and walk away unscathed. But this time, they didn't just get clapped back, they got run over. If you debate in 2025 and your opponent brings meme edits while you bring a thoughtful monologue, guess who wins? Sunny's moment wasn't loud or messy, it was worse. It looked like defeat. And online, looking rattled is worse than being wrong, and she looked rattled. You could see it in her eyes. The internet screenshotted every frame. Sunny brought a textbook to a fistfight, and Charlie Kirk made sure she never forgot it. But here's what really sealed it: the damage wasn't just to Sunny Hostin, it shook The View itself. Known for handling scandals, awkward interviews, even walkouts, the show suddenly seemed fragile, caught completely off guard by new rules. This wasn't just a controversy, it was a narrative siege. Kirk didn't just attack Sunny's words, he invaded her space digitally, flipped her authority inside out, and handed it to the internet to tear apart. The cameras caught everything: the tension in her voice, the darting eyes, the shift in posture. It was like watching someone realize live on air they were no longer in control. She tried to stay composed, to push through, but her face told the truth: the blinking, the stiffness, the forced smile. She knew the clip was out there, being edited, memed, and mocked in real time. Backstage, producers probably scrambled, but on screen, Sunny was stuck. No rebuttal, no comeback, just the weight of millions of pixels turning her discomfort into content. She wasn't yelling or breaking down loudly, but her composure cracked, and that's all the internet needed. She walked into a talk show, Charlie turned it into a battlefield, and while the cameras never blinked, she did, and that blink became legend. Now, Sunny Hostin's media reputation, once solid, sharp, and unshakable, was reduced to blinking reaction clips and sarcastic remixes.